How's it going, garden people? Welcome to the Hidden Gardens. Today we're going to take a walkthrough tour of the gardens in the front yard. Starting here in the Wonderland garden, right here we have a Japanese holly. These are one of 4 planted, and they were fall planted, so we had a bit of a dry winter, and I probably should have kept on the watering a bit more. So we're going to have to check out how they pull through. Butterfly bushes still need to be cut back. The jury is still out on this gardenia, whether we're going to keep it in the ground and see how. I think I'm going to see how it does throughout the summer and then decide. But this castle spire definitely got chewed up by the rabbits. I'm not sure if it's going to come back. We'll see. I did grab a few replacements though, just in case. Dragon Prince Cryptomeria, that was also fall planted, so we'll also see how those do this summer. Royal Purple Smoke Tree that put on quite a bit of growth this past season, so we're going to see how this one shapes up. I'm looking forward to seeing some color on it this year since there is more growth on it, so that should be interesting when it comes out. We've got another Dragon Prince Cryptomeria there, showing a little bit of winter burn. Again, they're fall planted, so. Moving on, we have some geranium plants that I think need to be divided at this point. At least one definitely does. Snow Fountain's Weeping Cherry is budding up really nicely, and this will come out with some really, really pretty petite white flowers on every single branching that you see here. So the whole thing's just covered with white flowers. Super pretty. I showed in my last video that I just pruned up all of my trees. So I'm really looking forward to this spring, summer, fall shows and how things are going to look. More mulching to get to before the weeds make another attack. And this is a Castle Rogue that the rabbits got to. We'll see how that pulls through, if it does. And a bunch of hibiscus, but we do have some daffodils poking through, so that's fun. It looks like quite a bit are poking through, so that should be a fun show come soon. Japanese holly, looks like the rabbits got to a little bit of it down at the bottom as well. They definitely got to that one. That's a castle spire right there. They definitely got to that. I do see the Silver Mound Artemisia coming through and coming back, so that's super exciting. I'm glad about that because I really like that plant. It looked super pretty for the majority of the seasons. And more castle spire. I might take out that second trunk to the left now that the rabbits have limbed them up for me, so I don't know, that second trunk looks a little funky now, so I might just keep it to one trunk and at least the rabbits can't get to the upper parts. But everything else seems to be coming back so far. Here we have Ruby Falls Weeping Redbud, and I took quite a bit of branching off out of the middle this last prune session simply because I intend to pick it up, because if you can see it's a little bit tilted, which normally I would just stake the tree, but because it seems like it's buried a little bit too deeply now that the rest of the garden's kind of been built up around it, I'm gonna try and pick it up and adjust it a little bit. I think. We'll see. Cross your fingers. Tradescantia, I think I'm saying that right, looks like is coming back. And we do have some alliums popping up, but we're gonna hold our breath and hope that the rabbits won't touch them. They did last year. I don't know. We have like super hungry bunnies around here. The hibiscus plants have been cut back, and they'll look like that until about late spring, early summer when they finally leaf out, but they're super gorgeous when they do. And a variegated dogwood right here that looks like something might be munching on it. Now, we do have deer on the Cape, but in my particular neighborhood, I've yet to see any, and it's a heavily populated area, so the deer aren't really hanging out in my neighborhood, we'll say. More of the silver mound artemisia coming up, and lavender twist redbud. That's gonna hopefully be pretty coming this season. We'll see what happens with it. Backed by a baby blue spruce behind it. And that tree is slow growing but super pretty. I've really enjoyed that tree. More mulching to do as I just cut back all of these hellebore plants. They're actually, I think I got to it a little bit late. They're looking a little rough. But this coral bark Japanese maple is just amazing. Super pretty plant. Fairly durable too, because I've moved it a few times before it's finally landed in this spot. And I think both I and it, the tree, like that spot. So we're going to keep it here. Dragon Prince Cryptomeria again that I just planted, and as you can see I planted it right smack into 2 hellebore plants that are now going to need to be moved. But these plants are perking up now that I've gotten all the leaves and stuff out of the way, so we'll see. Super pretty blooms though. They have done really well in the past, so this season I think I just got to them a little bit too late in cutting back the foliage and getting all of the leaf litter off of them. All in all, this season though should be a pretty fun one to watch the garden come to life. Now, every garden space within the hidden gardens within my property are all new-ish within the past 5 years of gardening on this property, and all the plants are, most of them are young. I've bought in some plants that are like more bulky or bigger, but most of them are young. And I'm still in the process of planting. As you can see, that white tag that's there, that's to mark I want a little tree there. Another castle spire that got eaten by the rabbits. Japanese holly looks okay. And this summer wine 9-bark to the left there, beautiful. This Abelia, Miss Lemon, is looking a little rough right now. We'll see how it comes back. We might just be a little cold for it in terms of zones. Hardiness zone for that plant is down to a 6B up to a 9, so I'm on the colder end of the scale at a 7B now. So it might just be more of a semi-evergreen like the hellebores are in my area than a fuller evergreen in warmer areas. And user error, I think, again with the watering, winter watering, I probably should have watered these gold mop Japanese hollies a little bit more. I think they may have died, but we've got some tulips coming up. Hopefully whatever's trying to dig in there doesn't get to them, it looks like, but hopefully they'll come up. We'll see. If you're new here, please consider subscribing so that you can check out whether these plants actually did make it throughout the season. Let's hope so. I'm crossing fingers, but sometimes things don't make it, and that's perfectly fine. That's the life of a gardener. You know, you look at plants and you put them in the ground and you hope that they make it, and sometimes you like the spot or the plant likes the spot, or you don't like the spot or the plant doesn't like the spot, so it dies or you need to move it, or gardening is gardening. And I did have somebody ask me about these black dragon cryptomeria plants. As far as their color, when it's super cold, they do kind of get a little bit darker black, purplish black, which is actually kind of pretty, so I like it. But otherwise, they green right up once it starts to get warmer. We've got some tulips going, a little bit of action in just the hyacinths in those pots, and I do keep the tulips in pots because otherwise the rabbits are definitely going to get them. Fall planted some sedum right there. It looks like it's coming back, so that's exciting, especially because I'm not a big fan for me of fall planting because I can't keep a good control over the watering situation going into the winter. Once it gets super cold, I just don't want to come out here, and if we have a dry winter, that's pretty much the only moisture that they're really getting. So for me, as a gardener, I'm more of a fan of spring planting. I was a little all over the place cutting back the grasses. Some I cut too short, I overcompensated and cut some too long. It was a thing. Next season, hopefully I'll cut it a little bit earlier and not as short. Moving on to the side garden, another castle spire eaten by a bunny, but a bunch of daffodils that are popping up, and these were planted first before all the others in the garden, so these are coming up a little bit higher, so that's interesting. Some more artemisia coming back, salvia coming back, so that's exciting. And then we've got a Gatsby Moon oak leaf hydrangea. Hopefully that'll come out and look really pretty. So this area is shaping up nicely. More silver mound artemisia there. Looks like I didn't clean up that plant very well. And then the shed's been great. I'm glad that we added that. This little area needs some reworking. You can see we've got a couple of stones there to get that done. And we've got some sedum. I believe that's the firecracker, so I'm excited that came back. This whole side area I've developed over the past year. I'll link the video below that shows this whole transformation and what plants went in and what things look like. But for now, you can see that the daffodils are starting to poke up, and that is going to be a pretty spectacular show. So the space is going to be pretty exciting for this year. We've got some Dusty Miller right here that seems to overwinter for us. I'm probably going to cut this plant back a little bit and see how it looks. But I'm going to be putting a bunch of cut flowers into these raised beds here that I'll be able to make bouquets for to hopefully sell a few down at the shop. We'll see. These planters, I'll give you a little bit of a sneak peek, are going to be for all of the roses that are over here, the majority of which are David Austin's and definitely need to be potted up. Still some more work to be done up here and developing planting of plants. This tree right here, I don't think I'm going to plant right here. It's a weeping peach tree, but it doesn't develop fruit, just the flowers, I believe. I'm going to move it, I think, towards the shed more, because it's a bit of a taller tree. And then these castle spire were also victims of the bunnies. So, we have quite a bit of bunnies, and while it does seem to upset their stomach, it doesn't seem to stop them if they're hungry enough to be eating them. As you can see, I was able to protect these two plants. The previous two were protected, but the protection flew off, so the bunnies got to them. But as you can see, when they're protected, they do make it through, leaves intact. So I'm going to have to figure out a way to just protect them long enough so that they get big enough to where the rabbits can't reach them. And then this one is also a Castle Rouge. Castle Rouge, I believe, is the right way to pronounce that. So, some yarrow ground cover that was already here, and I didn't cover it because it's not a bad ground cover, so I'm going to hopefully let it continue. And then lastly, we've got a star magnolia that is going to bud out pretty soon. So I hope that this video inspires you to get out in your garden space and continue along your gardening journey, whatever that looks like for you. And thank you for coming along on mine.